my screen. Am I normal?
I don't think you'll ever be normal, but your phone is still messed up. Let's get into it.
Perfect.
Okay. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Beep. I Wish I Knew in My 20s. Today, we have Femi Redwood. She's a podcaster extraordinaire. She has been seen on television worldwide, on Vice, on CBS News. She's an award-winning journalist, anchor, reporter, podcast host. She's just about everything.
I'll be doing the things. I'm so excited. Yes, let's do this.
Is that your podcasting voice?
It is. Well, it's sometimes. Yes.
Sounds like you spend a lot of money on that voice.
Oh, I did. Only for me to throw it all out the window and just talk.
I know, right? But I think it helps us too, because I've got that, you and I similarly spent a lot of money with a specific voice coach who is the classiest chick I've ever met.
So classy. Like, she is oozing class. And I don't even understand how she's so just like poised.
Big shout out to Priscilla Shanks, okay? Yes. Incredible woman that we both, of course, because we're both journalists, we ran across this woman, and she's so classy that I always feel like, ooh, my nails are chipped. Ooh,
yep.
I have food in my teeth. Like, she's so cool. So Priscilla, we love you. So you were a on-air journalist. You were working in Flint. You did your time at Vice, CBS News, and you're doing podcasting, which is a little bit of a twist. Not totally, but kind of, because you're able to say what you think a little bit more.
Right. Honestly, it is more amazing than I would have ever expected. It got to a place where I've been in news for almost a decade now. I don't even know. It's been a minute, right? So I started behind the camera as a producer, writer, PA, writer, producer, that whole trajectory, reporter, anchor, that whole thing. And it just got to the point where I reached these places that I wanted to reach in my career, and was very excited about it. It was great, but I still wasn't happy. I think when you're younger, especially with a career like reporting, where there is a almost set path, we think it's going to feel different and be better when we reach our goal, but it wasn't. I was proud of the work I did, in terms of the fact that it was accurate reporting. Everything I did was always accurate, truthful, all of that jazz. So I was proud of that, but I wasn't happy. There would be some days where I would come home as in, like, literally, this is in the pandemic. So, like, I'm shooting outside and then walking back inside of my apartment. I would just come home and it's like, wait, can I curse on your podcast?
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay. But I would come home and just be like, I was bored shitless. I hate what I'm doing. I didn't know if I was burnt out. I didn't know if I just wasn't feeling as challenged, creative. Why? Like, I was not happy. I started to that point sort of freelancing at 1010 Wins Radio. It was like a radio station that I was a PA at years and years ago. And I started freelancing. I was supposed to be an anchor, but Lord, when I tell you that soundboard was so confusing, I could not learn it. It was like the most confusing thing ever in the world. So I started reporting, and it was fun, but it was the same thing where I just wasn't happy. I wasn't loving the way that we present news. And when I say we, I mean journalists in general. There's very much a way that journalists do news where it's like, sure, we're telling you the who, what, when, where, why, but it's very sanitized. It's very, my name is Femi Redwood, and I am reporting from here, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm wearing my straight wig, and I'm wearing my jewel colored dress, and I'm wearing my eyelashes. And I like all of those things when I want to do them. But needless to say, I wasn't happy. I wasn't loving it. And so in all actuality, my brand manager, which is basically the equivalent of a news director for radio stations, hit me up about this opportunity to run the podcast department. But I was like, yeah, no, I don't really know what I want to do. But I kind of think I'm over news. I'm just bored, not loving it. Respect the station, everything they do, but just was bored. I talked to a friend of mine who was like, you know what, just try it. You might like it. I talked to my wife who said the same thing. Just try it. You might like it. And I was like, all right, I'm going to try it. If I don't like it, I'm out. I'm just going to be out because I just assumed I really wouldn't like it. And I think also too, if I'm going to be completely frank, in TV, at least speaking for myself, there's this sort of vanity of liking to be on screen, liking for people to see you. Like it just is what it is. And so I was like, am I going to miss that? Like, I don't know. So needless to say, I was like, all right, I'll take this position. Let's do it. And fell in love where like, I could not imagine doing anything else besides the fact that I love the way that we can tell stories. I love running the department, not gonna lie. I do love being a boss, like that's fun. But the biggest thing honestly is the fact that like I can show up at work every day as me, authentically me. Some days with my hair natural like this, some days with a purple wig on, some days with a wig that is color 1B, which is natural black, FYI. That is 1B if you ever want to know. Yeah.
Some days know all the things.
Oh, you're going to know. You're going to learn all the things. Hair VV. That's where you get your wig from. Hair VV. Sometimes I'm like literally shocked that I like work this much. It makes no sense.
And by the way, that is something for all you 20-somethings out there. Know that you might think that X is what you want, but it's really Y. And you don't even know till you get X because you got X.
Right.
And then you were like, no.
Wasn't it? I literally felt like the gates of heaven was going to open up once I finally reached these, these career heights. And it just wasn't. I just wasn't able to bring my full authentic self to work. And if I'm not able to bring the best part of me to my job, what am I doing?
Oh, you're so right. You're so right. And really, that's a lesson for everyone. If you can't bring your full authentic self to anything, like a relationship, it's your job.
Don't even get me started on relationships. But okay, we're going to talk about
But seriously though, like how many times have we tried to be something that we are not? It worked.
Oh my God.
And I'm still trying. I'm still trying. I mean, well, no, in my relationship on him being me, but at work, I'm still finding myself trying to be these things. And like, this podcast is my outlet.
I think so often, especially like in the 20s, we go to in order to feed our soul, we go to other things, not necessarily the thing we want. So whether or not that is clubbing until 2 a.m. in the morning and then going to work at 3 a.m., whatever it is, we do all of these horrible relationships, all of these things to sort of feed our soul, which like isn't really the thing that we need,
You're really taking on some topics that people need to know that they don't know, like beyond Black History Month and your Pride podcast. And so what has been the most rewarding thing about these podcasts? I mean, because you're hearing from people.
I think honestly, it is hearing from people because they didn't see themselves in stories and they didn't hear themselves in stories, see these stories being told. So one of my favorite stories that I did for the podcast, It's Okay to Say Gay. We launched it for Pride. And the whole idea behind the name was that, all of these anti-gay, don't say gay bills, all these anti-trans laws. So this is our way of saying like, it's okay, literally. But one of my favorite stories that I did was one about how elderly LGBTQ people basically say, don't forget about them this Pride, because they sort of fought for all of these rights that we have now. But when you think about Pride celebrations, they're not really geared towards our elders. And so I spoke to this woman, actually, one of the producers spoke to this woman who was just amazing. First of all, so much energy. But just like hearing her stories, hearing how she talked about like her friends that were in nursing homes and afraid for her other friends to visit because she didn't want to be outed and treated unfairly. And so just to hear their stories, but also to know that this woman never would have imagined her being the focus of a podcast. So almost just like making people realize that their voices and their stories matter. And that's undeniably one of like my most favorite thing ever, is just letting them know that like their story is just as important as Kim Kardashian's in that moment.
You've said, listen, Pride is not just a month. Like you need to tell LGBTQ plus stories all year round.
All year round. That's right. We're here. We exist. And the same thing though with Black History. And that's why I named that the Black podcast Beyond Black History Month, because every Black History Month, we do our 4 weeks of stories and then we're done. Now that there's Juneteenth, we do have some really tacky Juneteenth merchandise in stores. Walmart, I'm looking at you. But besides that, but yeah, that's what was really important. Just amplifying these voices that don't get amplified enough. And that's one reason that I love my job so much, is that I'm in this position where I can do that. And I never had that before. I thought I would have gotten that in TV, but nope. Didn't get it.
You have power, and we need smart Black women in power.
Yes, we do. And that's the other thing, honestly. And this, like, never in a million years that I think I would ever, number one, be a manager, but also want to be a manager. And when I tell you that I love working with these producers, they have less experience than me. And I love that, because whereas I'm like this curmudgeon that's bitter and annoyed, they are so excited, so full of energy and life. But also, it honestly feels really great to be in this position of mentoring people that are just excited about doing these stories. Like, I kind of love it. It's weird. Why do I love work? That's not what's supposed to happen. I should be hating work. I shouldn't love it.
Well, no, because now you're finally fulfilled. Like, I think you've hit the intersection of, I like telling stories, which you always did, but now there's stories that you want to tell, and you're in charge, and you get to pick them. And isn't that what we always want to do? Because damn it, you work in a newsroom and you're like, hey, I have this really great story. They're like, I understand. And there's a water main break over here.
Yeah. Literally, that's, and it's not to say that like those stories, the fires, the shootings, all of those things aren't important, because sure, they undeniably are. Like, I just did one story about violence interrupters. Community members who go out and they talk to people before a beef blows up into gun violence. So undeniably, I understand how shootings are important. I live in a Black neighborhood, so I get how and why these things are important. But what was more important to me is to tell these stories that really got below the issues, rather than just 35-year-old shot, boom, we're done.
Surface.
Story done.
Going back to your 20s, did you ever see this for yourself?
No. What
were you like in your 20s? Because I didn't know you in your 20s.
Oh my God. I was such an amazing asshole. Like, I was the best asshole.
Me too.
Ever ask for. Like, but make no mistake, I was an asshole. You know what? It's almost like you go through these waves, right? So in my 20s, I had like all the confidence in the world, even though like I didn't know shit. I'm confident, like, girl, like, just be happy you're paying your rent on time, which actually did not get paid on time most of the time, but that's not my fault. Kind of my fault, but that's not the point. Anyway,
moving on.
Moving on. So in my 20s, I was a dick, but a great dick. And when I say a great dick, because I think so often women are told to shrink themselves. And so in my 20s, I did not shrink myself. I was me. And I don't think I've ever really shrunk myself, but there's certainly been times in my career after my 20s where I then shrunk myself in those instances. And I remember my professor, was a journalism class, and my professor, I don't know how it came up, but at that point I used to also have natural hair. And I had like little 2-strand twists in my hair. And I remember in class saying, I'm not gonna work at a place that's gonna require me to straighten my hair. I'm gonna keep my hair just like this. So in my 20s, that's who I was. And then I got on air, and like, that went away. And like, slap that Brazilian keratin in this, let's go. So yeah, that was kind of me in my 20s. Unapologetically me.
I was unapologetically not even like, I didn't know who I was. How did you have that sense of self at that age?
Well, I was unapologetically me. In other areas, I was not. So maybe one area was compensating for the other. So for example, my first TV job was as a production assistant trainee, something like that at Fox 5, where basically a glorified intern, where I made minimum wage, which was amazing. Let me tell you, New York City on minimum wage, fantastic. I was in the closet for a very long time. Like, I remember I became really good friends with the makeup artist. And I remember every time we would talk, I would always say my boyfriend, not my girlfriend. So I guess in the same ways that I was unapologetically me, there were still parts of me that I was hiding. So yeah. So like, I just don't want like anyone to think like I was perfect, because I certainly wasn't. I was, presenting certainly as me, but still keeping very big parts of me hidden. Because I was hiding so much of me, I then almost overcompensated by being so much of me here. Do you know what I mean? They're almost like two separate people. So I guess that's it. I guess I really wasn't ever, but in some ways I was. Like, on the outside I was, inside I wasn't.
It's interesting. I think that I identify with that a little bit because I was hiding who I was, and we all have our own shit to hide, right?
Right.
But I was definitely hiding that I came from a background of like a crazy family. I was always like, whoa, you guys stay over there.
Right.
And I'm this perfect person when I was not.
Right. Earlier in my 20s, I did not realize that two things can exist at once. And so like, even let's look at family, for example. I can have a crazy whack job of a effing family, but still have had like a decent enough childhood. Do you know what I mean? I could still like present this way and think that like I could present very much authentically me, but still hold a part of me in, because two things can exist at once. So that's one thing that I didn't really come to terms with to understand until later. Yeah, two things can exist at once.
In 2022, the world is a little better at
my God,
accepting us with our nuances.
Yeah.
And you know, growing up as a Black woman in the South, LGBTQ,
doing Southern things.
Like, I can only imagine the difference between then and now. And so can you take me on that journey a little bit?
For clarity for everyone, I was raised half in South Carolina, half in Delaware. What was interesting is where I lived in South Carolina was a predominantly Black community, whereas in Delaware, it was the exact opposite. Not a lot of Black folks in Delaware, but the community that I lived in was very close to what's considered like a gay beach resort town. So two very, very different communities. But wait, what was your question again? So here's the thing that's interesting. I did not actually realize that I was gay until I was like 19, maybe. And this is why I had to bring up, you know, we're going beyond 20s, earlier than that. So I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, and Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't believe in premarital sex. They don't believe in dating until you are ready for marriage. And I knew that I wanted a life outside of Delaware. I knew that I wanted something different from what I was seeing in my community in terms of the whole like picket fence, 2.5 kids, all of that jazz. So in my mind, I was just like, I'm not interested in boys because I don't want to get married. Duh, who wants to get married at this age? So I didn't even realize like that is how insanely, I don't want to say sheltered, but like that is just how I just sort of like, oh, well, it makes sense that I'm not interested in boys. I don't want to get married. So it wasn't until literally like 18, like a couple of months before 19, when like there was a girl that liked me. I was like, no, we can be friends because I'm not gay. But like, ooh, DaBrat is kind of cute. I don't know if you remember the rapper DaBrat.
I remember DaBrat.
DaBrat was everything. I had like a Sprite post. Was it a Sprite post? It was some poster of DaBrat. And then my father, so I was going to college like an hour 45, my first college, an hour 45 away from my parents, which means I was, you know, doing laundry at home, like coming home once a week for like the things that you can't really afford in school. And so my father found out and he called himself taking away my car as my punishment. Those couple of days I was home, when I tell you I made his life miserable, I would be like, oh, I'm cramping. I need medicine. I need you to go to the store. Oh, I don't have any tampons. I need you to go to the store. Oh, crap. I need pads. I need you to go to the store. Needless to say, he got over that very quickly. Fast forward, I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but like when I got married a couple of years ago, he was there. So we are good now, blah, 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 blah. I'm the favorite kid because I be doing favorite kid things. When I left Delaware for my second college, like the real college that I really, really went to, was an HBCU in Mississippi. HBCUs, for those who don't know, it stands for Historically Black Colleges and Universities. And so because I was so concerned about like Mississippi, hate crimes, all of these things, I really like legit, I had two identities in Mississippi. So all of my gay friends called me Cam. That was my nickname based off of the rapper Cameron. I don't know if y'all remember, but he changed the game with the pink polos. And then the straight people knew me as Femi.
Wow.
Two different identities. Yeah. So while I'm sitting there, and here's why I bring it back here, because while I'm sitting there in my journalism class telling my professor, I'm only going to work for a news station that's going to let me wear my hair the same way, in its natural texture, he also only knew me as Femi, not Cam.
Some people who don't even have to pretend that they're somebody else have no idea how lucky they have it.
Yeah, well, that's one thing I'll say about today is, especially when you think about LGBTQ acceptance, it is so much better than it used to be, like leaps and bounds better. But it's almost kind of the same thing too, in terms of a lot of marginalized issues. I can't imagine, well, certainly news stations have a very, very long way to go, very long way to go. But even if for a fleeting moment, in 2020, there were those moments where news directors were saying, we stand in solidarity with Black folks. Can you imagine that 10 years ago?
And in 2020, I know you and I've had that discussion, and I remember thinking, like, I don't know enough about like what you deal with on a daily basis. And here, we worked together for so long and we were friends, and like, I just didn't know.
Right. You know what it is? And like, I'm going to be completely real here. Sometimes it is so uncomfortable talking to white people about race because you don't know if they're going to get defensive. You don't know. Or the other thing of defensive is like where they get too much, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And then you end up comforting someone and it's just like, okay, I don't know what to do. All right. I'm just going to.
It's not your cross to bear.
Yeah. It can be, it can be work, let me tell you. And I say this like my wife is white. I say this like with my white wife, or sometimes we have these conversations of like, sometimes I don't feel like it. I don't feel like it.
It's not your job.
No, it ain't my job.
Yeah.
No, I will, granted, because of the positions I have within all of these volunteer advocacy organizations, I will certainly turn it into my job. But that's when I feel like it. The rest of my time needs to go to like Game of Thrones and very important things.
And it's funny you bring up boundaries, because this is something for all you 20-somethings out there. I did not realize that I did not have boundaries in certain areas. And your boundaries, you have to set them, then you have to protect them.
Yes.
And I didn't know it in my 20s. I did not know it 2 weeks ago, that certain places I'm not really setting them because I don't feel I deserve boundaries in these areas. Right. And the reason why I don't is because, of all the things you carry around with you that you've heard growing up. You're not good enough. You're not nice. You're not this. You're not that. And sometimes it lives rent free in your head. And even now with all the work that I do, I was like, Jesus, I don't have a boundary about that.
I hear this a lot from other Black millennials. Where we have issues with boundaries is with our families, because, just because of being Black, there are these shared struggles, and there's just a different type of community. Because again, granted, a lot of it built from trauma that Black folks have compared to other communities. But needless to say, because of that, there is this almost expectation that you have to do things for family members. So my thing, and I've been so good about it that I'm so proud of myself for the most part, is like when I set boundaries with my family members, this is unacceptable. If you speak to me this way, if you do this, we cannot keep in communication. Our communication will be very, when we do have in those, shared environments, those places where we're all around each other, it will be a very, very stiff interaction. And so for the most part, I can stick to those boundaries. The only time I can't, although I've gotten better recently, is when my mom will say things. And I don't think, I'm going to come back to this point in a second. I think with parents, as children, we want our parents to be perfect, because we see them as these like greater than us beings that raised us, these giants. They were older, But in all actuality, our parents are just as screwed up as we are and trying to figure out life in the same way that we are. So needless to say, I say all of that to say, there'll be times where my mom, who admittedly also has a problem with boundaries, my mom will say, oh, well, he's trying, or why don't you help him? And it's been only recently, I would say within the past 6 months, where I would say, no, this is my boundary. I need you to stop pushing it. I need you to respect that boundary. It is okay if you allow him to cross your boundaries. he will not be crossing mine. But yeah, boundaries with family can be tough. And when you think about it, they're also like your first friends, your first social interactions, your first everything. So of course it's going to be tough with family.
When Josh is unhappy about something, like when he's depressed or he's sad or whatever it is, my boundary was that I can't be happy if he's not happy. And that's something in relationships is like, well, if only he was happy, then I could be happy.
Right.
And we do this, we hook our happiness on other people or on other things, but I get that.
Yes.
And it's a boundary. I can choose to be happy today. And, you know, I'm sorry that you're doing this. I'm sorry you're feeling this way. And let me know what I can do for you. And we'll be over here being happy because why not?
Right. Thinking back on like putting our happiness into other things. And that's part of the reason why when I took this position, I was so shocked, because I thought previously that I would be happy at this place and I'd be happy at that place, and it didn't happen. So then what happens is well, is it me? Am I just over this? Am I doing something wrong? Would I be happy if maybe I got like $20,000 more? Maybe I'd be happier if instead of in this department, I was in this department. But like, no, regardless of what happens, you know, I want to be happy. And I would like to say that's where I am now, regardless of what happens to this job. I would like to say that that's where I am now. But admittedly, I can also say that with like all the privilege in the world, knowing that like, let's say I lose my job tomorrow. Of course, I can still be happy. I have a wife who like is a pretty good job. Yeah, it absolutely helps. Like, so I don't know. I don't know if I can say that I would really be happy if I didn't have everything, because I don't know how truthful that would be. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I don't know. First piece of advice. If you happen to love vintage clothes, love it. Beautiful, great. But if you're going to wear vintage clothes that is, let's say, 40 years old, be prepared that the seams will rip when you are at work and your ass may be exposed, but you'll look great right before that rip. Well, you might even look great after that rip, depending on who's around. Keep safety pins on you just in case. When I tell you, like luckily I had a cardigan to like cover my ass, but like I literally had to like walk to the Gap and buy something from a bum. Anywho, good times. Which actually, I think this is a pattern, because now that I think about it, when I was in college, Back That Ass Up was one of the songs that was on and popping. I remember backing that ass up, dropping it like it's hot, and my cheap pants ripped at the club as well. I also had to go home. I think there's something here. I got to unpack this. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It might be buying clothes my correct size.
Episode number 2, we will unpack this.
We'll come back to that later. When you are younger, you tend to think, at least based off of my experience, that when you get older, you are going to have all of the things, all of the monies, all of the homes, all of the things. That's typically not the way life works out. So my advice is plan just in case you don't have all of the things. And what I mean by that is like, don't live like a super boring life where you don't do things, but just plan that like you might not have all of those things. And when I say plan that, a part of planning that is knowing that it's okay if you don't. Don't hook all of your expectations onto these things, because if you don't get it, then that turns into disappointment, that turns into self-doubt, that turns into questioning all of your choices, and nothing good comes out of that negativity. So just plan that maybe you won't have these things, and that's okay. Like, that's okay.
But another thing is that I worked so hard all these years that now I'm at a point where I'm like working hard still, but I'm like, oh, when am I going to enjoy life? Maybe I should go on a beach vacation, or maybe I should. Right. So I have put off a lot of stuff to work.
Yeah, no, same. There's like, it's insane how many things that we have put off for work. Just especially in this type of industry where it's always hustle, hustle, hustle. And I think also that like, I will say, I love the fact that Gen Zers are getting away from the very toxic hustle culture that like was ingrained in us. But like the hustle culture can be so toxic, because like there's nothing wrong with just taking time off. Call it a fancy sabbatical, or just call it laying on your couch. There's nothing wrong with taking time off or going to do the foolishness, just enjoying life now rather than waiting.
I saw this meme the other day about what was that gap in your resume? And someone said, oh, that's the only time I experienced joy. Who said we had to work all the time and not have a gap in our resume? And then I also have clients who will leave a job and then they're like, I don't have a job. What am I going to do? It's like, enjoy it.
Enjoy it. I thought my life would look one way and it doesn't. It looks so different than I could have ever expected or planned. And I'm so grateful. I have an amazing wife who I'm going to smother in a second and force her to watch Law and Order reruns while eating a really good salmon burger. A great job that I love. Very excited about this burger. A great job. But no, like, I would have never, 5 years ago, I did not think this is where I would be, but I'm so grateful this is where I'm at.
What is some beep you wish you knew in your 20s?
Be authentically you, both in and out. If you're questioning, they're not worth it. Like, let it go, let it go, let it go. Lord, let it go. That could be, and I won't name names, but you know who I'm talking about. That could have all been, you know, who child. You know what? Honestly, I think my biggest piece of advice is to just, have your boundaries, be kind, not nice. I do not believe in being nice. Being kind, not nice. I hate that nice BS. But be authentically you.
Well, everybody follow Femi Redwood and tell us what podcasts we need to be following right now, this moment.
Right now, at the second. It's called Beyond Black History Month. And then the other one is called It's Okay to Say Gay. They are on all the podcast apps. Every single last thing. They're all there. Every app.
I love it. Thank you so much for telling the stories that need to be told and for sharing some beep we wish we knew in our 20s. Oh, wait. One last thing. I didn't ask you the one question I ask all the time.
Oh, what is it?
It's what is the one memory you wish you could erase from your 20s as far as like your hair, a hair moment, an outfit moment, or a job moment?
So remember Ashley Simpson and how she was wearing her hair that very like emo style where it was like super straight. So imagine that, except on a Black woman with natural hair, which means I was straightening my hair. But if you know anything about Black natural hair, it then turns into an afro as the day progresses. So up here would be an afro, like just an afro. And then down here would be like these straight spiky ends going everywhere. It was the ugliest monstrosity I have ever had in my life. And to add insult to injury, which is why I should know by now to buy makeup that matches, I have photos where I'm literally sitting in an apartment and like my face is 10 shades lighter than my neck. And then you've got like the afro with the things going here. And it was just the most insane monstrosity. Yet I had the nerve to think I was killing the game. You could not tell me I was not serving you Ashley Simpson realness. It was horrible.
First of all, horrible. I never knew anyone wanted to serve Ashley Simpson realness.
Listen, she had a couple good songs on that first album.
She had a good moment.
Make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't already. Tell a friend, leave a review. It helps more than you know. You can also watch this interview on YouTube. Follow us on Insta and TikTok at Debra Alfarone for more beep I wish I knew in my 20s. And drop your email to be the first to know about new episodes. And guess what? I'll send you my free GTFO confidence guide. Just drop your email at pages.debraalfarone.com. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.